Hello friends, welcome back. Today I'm going to discuss some Python questions and I will give you the answers and explanations for these questions. So the first question is a named sequence of statements is known as, so it is called as a function. A function is a block of code which only runs when it is called. So there will be a calling function and a called function. So a function will be the function which is calling the function is called as the calling function, and the function which is called as the called function. And to the called function, the calling function can send some parameters, and this data is called as parameters, and they're called as the actual arguments. And the function, upon receiving these arguments, can do some computations with this particular data, and it will return some value to the calling function. So a named sequence of statements is known as a function. So the second question is, dash consists of a function header followed by a function. So what is it? So it is the function definition. So as you can see the syntax of the function definition here, the function is always prefixed with a def keyword. So def is a keyword here, followed by the name of the function. So here the name of the function will be there. And so this is the name of the function, and then followed by the list of variables. So these variables are called as the formal arguments, and then there is a colon over here. So this is the syntax of the function header, and then inside the function, so there will be some documentation strings if you need it, and then the statement block, and then the return statement. Return statement is optional over here. And documentation strings are also optional, and some statement blocks, this is a must over here, at least one statement, because there is no purpose if you're not including statement blocks. So this is all the function definition. So it consists of the function header. So this green color thing over here is called as the function header, and this part is called as the function body. So the function header and then the function body together forms the function definition. So let us move on to the third question. So dash is used to uniquely identify a function. So function name is used to uniquely identify a function. A program can have many functions in it. So you need to call the function, right? So in the first question, I said like a function is called. So to call the function need to have a name. So by the name, a function is uniquely identified, and the function name should start with a letter or an underscore, and they should be lowercase. It is not mandatory to be lowercase, but this is a programming convention that generally the function names are kept lowercase, and they can have numbers. The function name can have numbers, and they can be any length. But we generally keep it short and descriptive, like descriptive about what is happening inside the function. And they can't be the same as a Python keyword. So you cannot make the Python keywords as function names. They can have the same name as an existing function, including the built-in. So you can have two functions with the same name. So this is regarding the function name. So the fourth question is, a written statement with no arguments is same as a written what? So it is none. So as I already told you, the function will take certain arguments and it will do some computations and return some value to the calling function. So this written statement is optional. So if you have something to pass, then you will be explicitly mentioning a written statement. Else Python will internally add a written statement which will return none. So functions without a written statement known as void functions. They are called as void functions which return none from the function. So this value is written to the calling function. So if we get to the end of any function and we have not explicitly executed any written statement, Python automatically returns the value none. So if you want to return some value, so you can say return a or return some or something if you explicitly want to return something. And if you're not writing a written statement inside your function, Python will automatically return the value none to the calling function. So the fifth question is, to define a variable defined inside a function as global, dash statement is used. So what is a statement used for a variable wherein you want to make it a global variable? So the global keyword is used. So global keyword is put before the variable name to define it as a global variable inside a function. So when we create a variable inside a function, it is local by default. So even if it has the same name like the global variable, when we define a variable outside a function, it is a global by default. You don't have to use the global keyword. If you're writing a variable outside the function, you don't require to put a global keyword in front of the variable. We use global keyword to read and write a global variables inside a function. So inside a function, global variables cannot be accessed unless and until you use the global keyword if there are same variable names. So use of global keyword outside a function has no effect. So outside a function, so anyhow a variable is global by default. So this is regarding the global keyword. Sixth question, the order of keyword arguments is not important. State whether this statement is true or false. The statement is true because we are associating a keyword along with the value. So the keyword arguments are passed to functions after any required positional arguments. So this is mandatory. This is the syntax rules. The keyword argument should be passed to functions after any required positional arguments. But the order of one keyword argument compared to another argument does not matter. So how do we write a keyword arguments? So I can say that A is equal to 5. So when I mention A is equal to 5, I'm associating a keyword along with the value. So the order do not matter over here. Even if I mention B is equal to 6 over here, and after B, even if I mention A, then this order do not matter because we are giving a variable name over here. We are mentioning a keyword over here. So automatically, even if this order is not in the same order like how the formal arguments look like, maybe in the formal arguments I'm having A comma B. So I'm saying there is a function. So I'm saying there is a function F. Say I'm having a function F, and this function F is taking A and B. So this is a function call. Say I'm calling the function saying B is equal to 6 and A is equal to 5. So even if here the order is A comma B, but here while passing the values, I'm saying B comma A. So this doesn't matter because I'm associating a keyword. So this value will directly map with the A over here. So there is a here and there is a here, right? So it automatically maps to this value. So 5 will go into the variable A and 6 will go into variable B because it is identified with the keyword. So this is regarding the keywords. And remember that the case if there are any positional arguments, first positional arguments needs to be given, and then only you have to give the keyword arguments. So the next question is, can we have a local variable with same name as global variable? The variables inside the function are considered to be the local variables. So whenever I say for example, I'm having A is equal to 5 outside the function, and then inside, so I have a function F over here. Okay, so inside the function, I'm again saying A is equal to 7. So now what happens is this A is different from this A. This A over here is the global variable and this A here is the local variable. I can have the same name, like this is the global variable with A and this is the global local variable which is having the same name. So this is permissible and totally valid. And this global variable A can be accessed inside the function by using the global keyword. Dash are not declared as other functions using def keyword. So all the functions that we declare will be having a prefix def keyword. But so there are some other functions, special functions, which can be declared without using the def keyword. What are they? So those are called as the lambda functions. So a lambda function is a small anonymous function, and the lambda function can take any number of arguments, but it will be returning only one expression. So what is the syntax? So the syntax is lambda followed by the arguments colon the expression. So it can take any number of arguments over here, and then it will do some computation. So there will be only one expression. It will compute and return it. So as you can see, this will not be having any keyword def before it, but it will be having the lambda. Okay. So lambda keyword will be there instead of the def keyword. So it will be having the lambda keyword. Lambda functions are throwaway functions, true or false? Yes, it is true. An anonymous function is a function without an identifier or a name. So a function without a name is called as a lambda function. And the lambda functions are an important part of functional programming. that allow you to write throwaway functions without needing to name it. Like for example, you just wanted to use these lambda functions to do a part of a computation, a simple computation like finding a min or max in a sorting algorithm, or a certain is a small part of a major operation that you want to do. So that's the reason we may not call a function many times. You just need it for calculating something, and then maybe in the rest of the code you are not using that function again and again. So that's that kind of functions you will be putting them as the lambda functions, and that's the reason they got the name that lambda functions are throwaway functions. So the next question is, lambda functions can access global variables, true or false? False. Lambda functions cannot access the global variables. Next, okay, what is the output of this particular program? So the program is just one liner over here. So I just have print and then I have the lambda keyword. So as I already told you, so I'll be creating lambda functions with the lambda keyword. So this is the lambda keyword followed by the arguments. So there is only one argument over here, which is x. And then there is a colon. So this is the syntax of how you create the lambda functions. And then here I have an expression which is saying x to the power of 3. Okay, so here this 3 which I have given in the parentheses is nothing but the value that I want to pass for x. So I'm passing 3 for the value of x. So it will be 3 power 3. So what is the output? So the output is 27. Python lambda expressions support all the different ways of passing arguments. So this is one way of passing the arguments. Like this includes passing positional arguments, named arguments, which are also called as the keyword arguments, and then the list of variable list of arguments, and then variable list of keyword arguments. This is k args and args and all that, and the keyword only arguments. So by using all this, like how you pass arguments to the normal functions, in the similar way, you can pass arguments to the lambda function as well. So here are the various ways of passing the arguments into the lambda function. So in the first case, all the three are the positional arguments. So the first argument will go into the first argument, which is x, and the second argument goes into the second one. So these are considered to be the positional arguments. Based on the position of how the arguments are listed, the values will go into them. In the second case, like you have x and y, these are the positional arguments, and z is equal to 3 is the default argument. So in case if I do not mention a value over here, so it will consider, it will take z to be 3. But if I say 7 over here, since I have passed value for z, what happens is it will consider 7. But since I didn't pass the third argument, it will take z value to be the default value, which is 3. So these two are the positional arguments. 2 go into x and 2 also goes into y. In all the lambda functions here, like we are doing the summing up of x, y, and z. So I get 2 plus 2 plus 3, I'll get 7. So in the third case, like you can see, the arguments are passed. The first one is the positional argument, and the second one is the keyword argument. And in the list of arguments, I have 2 positional arguments and one as the default. Since I'm not mentioning the value for z, it will take the default argument, so which will be 3. So x will take 2, and then y I'm passing 2 for y over here. So you can see here that y, the keyword arguments are placed only after the positional arguments. So summing up of this, I'll get a 7 over here. And in the second, in this particular example, so this example, what we're doing is I am using the variable length arguments. So I'm taking 2, 2, and 3, and I'm giving it to the variable length arguments, which is represented as star and then the name of the variable. So I'm saying star args. So now I'm making the sum of these three values which I have passed into the lambda function. So it will return a 7 over here. In this case, I'm passing a variable length, but this variable length is the keyword arguments. So I'm saying 1 is equal to 2, and 2, 2, and 3 I have passed. So to take the keyword variable length arguments, I'll be using star star. So this is a syntax. So this will catch all the keyword arguments, and then it will be making a sum of this by using the keyword arguments variable name dot values. So I'll be getting 7 over here. In this, I have taken one positional argument, and then I have taken two keyword arguments, but have some X, then I'm saying star, and then I said Y is equal to 0, then I'm saying Z is equal to 0. So what happens is for Y and Z, even if I have star over here, because I'm specifically mentioning the keyword arguments, I'm saying Y is equal to 2 and Z is equal to 3. So what happens for Y, it will take 2. It will not consider the default value because I specifically mentioned what is the value for Y. So it will take 2 over here. For Z, it will take 3. It will not consider this 0 because I specifically mentioned what will be the value for Z. If I'm not mentioning this Y and Z, then it will be taking 0 and 0. So for X, it will be the positional argument, which is 2. Then I said X plus Y comma Y plus Z. So which will be summing up to 7. So this is regarding how you pass arguments into the lambda function. So the next question is, what is the output of this particular function? So I said min is equal to, so I had a lambda function here, so which is taking X and Y, two values, and if X is less than Y, so it is returning X. Okay, so if this condition evaluates to be true, so if this is evaluating to be true, I want it to pass X. If this condition is evaluating to be false, then I want it to pass return Y. So I have taken some values over here. So you can see that. So I have taken two arguments, but these two arguments are in turn having some computations in it. So the first thing what it will do is it will compute this 101 into 99, which is equivalent to 9,999. And this value is passed into X. Okay, and then 102 into 98 is calculated, which is 9996, which is passed into Y. So now the computation takes place. What is the computation? So there is an expression over here, if expression. So X less than Y. So what is X, which is 9,999, and Y is 9,996. So this is less than this, which is evaluated to be false. So Y is written. So what is Y? Y is 9,996. So you can use lambda functions for simple calculations. So what is the output of this particular program? So I have a full length function over here. So I have def and then I have test over here. The name of the function is test, which is having two arguments. The first one is A and the second one is the default argument. So B is equal to 5. So I just wanted to print A and B, and this is the function call. So I said test, and then inside test, I'm passing -3. So -3 will go into A, but for B, I haven't passed any value. So what it will do, it will consider the default value. So you can guess the output now. So the output will be -3, 5. Positional arguments are arguments that can be called by the position in the function definition. So -3 over here is the positional argument. So it will go into the first argument inside your formal arguments. And optional arguments are arguments that cannot pass to the function. In Python, optional arguments are arguments that have a default value. So here B is equal to 5 is the default argument. So in the above code, so you can see like B is equal to 5 is the default argument. Then the keyword arguments are arguments that can be called by their name. So I can also say -3 comma, then I can say B is equal to some 8 or something. When I say B is equal to 8, so what happens is the default value will not be considered for B, it will take 8. So the answer will be -3 and 8 in case if I pass a keyword argument. Here during the function call, when I say B is equal to 8, this is considered to be the keyword argument. What is the output of this particular program? So here there is a function, so which is display function, which is taking two arguments. The first one is ch and the second one is n. So we are turning a loop. So the loop is turned till this condition becomes false. So inside the while loop, so we are having a print statement which is printing the value of ch, and then we are decrementing the n value. So what will be the output of this particular program when we call the display method on S and where n is equal to 5? So the answer is I'll be having S printed 5 times. So let us look into how this answer is obtained. So first CH is taking the value of s over here, and n is taking the value of 5. So for the first iteration of the while loop, 5 is greater than 0. So this is what is the first iteration, and wherein it is printing the value of ch, which is s. So here I don't want it to print in the next line. I want the s to be printed next to the previous iterated resultant value. So that's why I'm saying end is equal to, so I said I don't want any spaces over here, and I want to print it in the same line. So that's why I said end is equal to, and I gave double quotes over here, and there is no space in between these double quotes. So then I said, so in the next iteration, what happens? N becomes 4, and it goes for the next iteration. So in the next iteration, again, 4 is greater than 0 is true. So what happens? S is printed. And then n becomes 3 now. 3 is greater than 0. So the condition is true. So now again another s is printed. And in the next case, what happens? N becomes 2. And this is again true. And then I had the fourth s over here. And then n becomes 1. 1 is greater than 0. So the condition is true. And the s is printed over here. And in the next case, what happened is n has become 0. So 0 is less than, greater than 0 is false. So what happens? The loop breaks, and the control comes to the calling function. So this is the output of this program. So the next question is, we can find name of a module by using dash attribute of the module. So what is the attribute of the module by which you can find the name of a module? And the attribute is underscore underscore name underscore underscore. So this underscore underscore name underscore underscore is a special built-in variable, okay, which evaluates to the name of the current module. So, so this particular name variable is not available in Python 2.x version, but it is introduced in Python 3.0 version. So say, for example, there is only one method, so which is main program. So main.py. And if you are using this underscore underscore name underscore underscore in the main program, so the name attribute will return main. Okay, so it will give main. But if you are importing this in another program, and if you want to evaluate the name of the current module, then the name of the current module will be printed. So the name of the module will give the name of the current module. So the next question is, dash is built-in function that lists the identifiers defined in a module. So to know the identifiers defined in a module, so what is the built-in function that you will be using? So the method is dir. So dir is a powerful built-in function in Python 3, which returns the list of attributes and methods of any object. So what is an object here? It can be a function, it is a module, or it can be a string or list or dictionary or anything. And we know that Python is a fully object-oriented programming language. It's pure object-oriented programming language, meaning that everything in Python is an object. So for the class object, if you are using dir, it will return the list of names of all valid attributes and the base attributes also. And for the modules, it returns the list of names of all the attributes contained in that particular module. So if no parameters are passed, like for example, in this case, I am not passing anything inside it. So it is simply dir. So when no parameters are passed, it lists the it returns the list of names in the current local scope. So dir is used to get a list of identifiers defined in a module, and it is a built-in function. So the next question is, every package in Python is a directory which must have a special file called what? So every package in Python will be having a file, special file, which is underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py. Okay, so this is a special file that every Python packages should include. Why we need to have this is, so this is required to treat the directories as containing packages. So the directories will be treated like packages if, because your interpreter will search for underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py file, and it can also be kept as an empty file. But it can also execute, and it can also be used to execute initialization code for the package. And starting with Python 3.3, what happened is implicit namespace packages were introduced, And what with this, like you needn't give an underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py file inside your packages. But if you're working with before versions of Python 3.3, it is mandatory that you give this underscore underscore init dot py file. But after 3.3, you don't require to give it. But if you have special initializations to be done, then you can still use it. Of course, it can still be present if package initialization is needed. So if packages have an attribute dash which is initialized with the list having the name of directory holding the init.py. So it is a path variable. So Python import works by searching the directories listed in the sys.path. So path variable will be holding path of all the directories. So the next one is to import the square root and cos functions from the math module. We write as, so we'll say from math import sqrt comma cos. So here let us just try to understand the format over here. So I'm saying from math import sqrt and cos. So you can specify both the module or code you want along with where it is. Like for example, I'm saying sqrt and cos, which are there in the math module. So you put the name of the module or subpackage after the import statement and its location after the from. Okay. So such an import statement is great if you only want to import some of the code from the mentioned package and not the entire package itself. So math package is having many functionalities in it, but I just want the square root and cos functionality to be included in my program. So in that cases, I'll be using this from math import sqrt comma cos. So import a module that is not available causes an import error. So the import error is raised when an import statement has trouble successfully importing the specified module. Okay, so typically such a problem is due to an invalid or incorrect path. Next question is Python's pre-installed modules prompts the pre-installed modules. So the built-in modules. Okay, so they are called as the standard library. So Python standard library is very extensive and which provides many functionalities. The libraries contain the built-in modules which are generally written in C programming that provide access to system functionalities um, um, and which are used for everyday programming. So you needn't write the code again, you can use the built-in modules. And it provides modules for such tasks as interacting with the operating system, reading and writing CSV files and generating random numbers and working with dates and times, etc. So many modules are there. Even Turtle module is there, which is used for graphics and all that. So pre-installed modules from the standard library. Reload is in which module? So reload is in the import lib package. So import lib.reload. So this is reload is a function which is used to reload the module which is being edited on the go. So if there is some modification that is happening with the module that has been imported in one program, then you will be using this reload module to affect the changes that have been made to the module straight away. So that is the reload module. And next is modules are files saved with the dash extension. So it's .py extension. So modules are nothing but is a file consisting of Python code. So the code you write or any program that you write is considered to be a module, and the module can have functions, classes, and variables, and the file can be referred as a module. So anything wherein you are having functions and the basic one. So you can see that the simplest form of the module will be like which is having functions and variables in it, and so this file need to be named. So I'm saying test.py. So any name, it needn't be test, it can be any of your defined name. So this is the name of the module and which need to have this .py extension. So any module that you create should be saved with the .py extension. Py stands for Python, like how you save your C programs with .c and Java with .java and C++ with .cpp. So in the similar way, like you here, you will be saving it with .py extension. So the import star statement imports all the names in the module except those beginning with dash. So the import star here. So it is not import statement. I'm saying import star. So it imports all the names in the module except those beginning with underscore. Why it does not uh, include? So why it does not include the variables with underscore is that single leading underscore, like for example underscore where, is intended for the internal use. And when you say from M import star, okay, so when you're saying from M import star, star represents that you want all the functionalities from M module to be imported in the current module. But what it does is it will not import the modules, it will not import the objects which are having an underscore before. So this, like it wants a developer that this variable, method or function which is having an underscore before is not supposed to be imported and used publicly, but still you can use it if you explicitly mention it. So programmers can create private variables and methods in the class by saying underscore val and all that. So these are generally considered to be the private variables. And the single leading underscore is only a naming convention to indicate the variable or function which is like there for the internal use only. Programmers still able to import the name if they really want to. Okay, so there is no restriction like you cannot use, you can still use it. Let me show you how. So say for example, I'm having a program which is m.py, and in the m.py, I'm having two variables. One is ext and the other is underscore int. So you can consider this ext to be the external variable and underscore int to be the internal variable. So I have a program like this, which is m.py, which is a module. Okay. Now, for example, I want to use this m.py in another program. So this is another program wherein I am importing. So the first thing to use these functionalities in another program is I need to give an import statement. So I'm saying from M. So the name of the module is M, right? So it is m.py. So the name of the module is M, and I'm saying import star. Okay, when I say star, what does it mean? It means that everything inside M should be included, but it will not include this variable which is with the underscore. Okay, fine. So when I try to print this ext, it will print ext on the screen. But when I try to print this underscore int, it will say that name error. Okay, so it's not defined because this is starting with an underscore. This will not work with this particular statement. Like I'm saying import M from M import star. So that's what is my question, right? So I said from uh, import star. Okay, so import star will not import all this. And coming to the next program. So in the next program, what I'm saying, if I want the variables, underscore variables can be explicitly written. So here I'm saying from M import ext, and then I'm saying underscore int. So this way it works. So when I can also access ext and also I can access underscore int. So in the next case, I am saying import M. Okay, so I'm not using this other convention of import, which is from and all that. I'm simply saying import M. When I say import M, I can say m.ext and m.underscore int. So this will work. Okay, so but this does not work. When I say star, it does not work. So I hope this explanation is clear to you. And the next question is, what is a module that allows us to draw lines and shapes? So I have mentioned it in the previous question. So it is the Turtle module. So Turtle is a pre-installed Python library. So it's from the standard library that enables users to create pictures, shapes by providing them with a virtual canvas. You can also view Turtle to be a Python feature with an drawing board. Okay, so this is the Turtle module. And the next question is, what is the use of ID function in Python? So the ID function in Python returns the identity of the object. So let me explain you. What happens is, relate this with your C programming. So in C programming, we mean that the memory addresses, right? So the memory addresses here, you can understand it to be the ID. Okay, right. So ID is, it's a function. So it is a built-in function in Python, and the syntax is ID and the object. So whatever object, it can be a variable, anything you pass it, it will return the ID. So what does this ID function return? The ID function will return an integer. It will return an integer. So this identity has to be unique. So it has to be unique and constant for this object during the lifetime. And so this is another question. So wherein we are saying all keywords in Python are in uppercase, lowercase, capitalized, and none of the mentioned. So all the keywords in Python are what? So they are none of the above. Okay, so they are not uppercase. We know that most of the keywords are lowercase, but it's not lowercase entirely because it's also capitalized. Why? The keywords are some predefined and reserved words in Python that have special meaning. So they cannot be used as identifiers. We know this, like for the names of the functions, names of the variables and all that, you cannot put the keywords. So all the keywords in Python are in lowercase, except for there are certain keywords over here which are true and false, which are capitalized. The T over here and F over here is capitalized. You cannot write lowercase true, it will be an error. So that's the reason all keywords in Python are in, so it is lowercase and also capitalized. So none individually it is not correct. So B is not correct, C is not correct because we have lowercase as well as the capitalized keywords. So the next question is, so what is the output of this program? So I just have a single line over here, print hello, and then I have some format method over here. So I said in the curly braces, I said 0, and then I said, and then I have given an R over here, and then I have put a 0 and not and an S over here. So then I said dot format. So I'm giving the first argument to be Sudha and the second one to be C. So now what will be the output of this particular program? So the output of this particular program will be hello Sudha. Sudha will be in single quotes. And next also I'll get Sudha, but this time Sudha will not be in single quotes because the R over here and this is S over here. Let us see what does it mean by R and S and what is 0 over here. So these are the formats and these are the replacement strings over here. So 0 is the replacement string. What is the replacement over here? So 0 represents the first in the format method. So what is the first in the format method? The first element in the format method is Sudha, which is at position 0. And Sino is at position 1. So now I said 0, right? So 0 will definitely print the first element, which is Sudha. So Sudha and Sudha is printed. Now, why did I get single quotes over here and why I did not get single quotes in here? Okay, so not S will give me this conversion. It will convert the string with the str function, and not R will convert the string with retr. So when it is converting with retr, both are used for giving the string representation of an object. So for when you are doing with retr, it will give the single quotes. When you are converting it using str, it doesn't give a single quotes. So A is correct because I have mentioned 0 in both the cases. So I'll be getting Sudha and Sudha only. So the next question is, what is the maximum possible length of an identifier? So we generally do the PEP. What is PEP? PEP is the Python enhancement proposal. The author of this PEP is Guido van Ronson, so the creator of Python. So according to him, in this particular PEP, in this particular enhancement proposal, it is clearly written that the maximum possible length of an identifier should be 79 characters. Okay, so the Python standard library is conservative and requires limiting lines to 79 characters. And for the doc strings and the comments, it should be 72 characters. Okay, fine. And for this particular program, identify the most efficient test data set for testing the code, which is given here using the logic coverage technique. Okay, so what is meant by logic coverage technique? Logic coverage technique means that you have to find out, so there is an if here and this if can become true or false. So there are two outcomes of any decision that we are having here. So it can be true or false. Now you should be identifying these values in such a way that what will be the outcome? You should test this if in such a way that it will be evaluating to be true as well as evaluating to be false. For both the cases, you need to test these if, elif, and elif and else over here. So consider the first option. For the first option, you have 79. So 79 will fall under this category. So 79, okay, so we are testing this, and 87 will test this, okay, and 91 will test this. Okay, 99 also will test this, but there is no value over here which will which will test this particular condition. So that's why option A is not valid. Now coming to option B. Okay, 78 will fall under this, 80 will fall under this first one again, 92 will fall under the second elif, and then 99 will fall under this. Again, in the B option also, the last else is not tested. So option B is wrong. Coming to option C, so 74, wherein it directly goes to the else part here. And for 77, it is the first one. And 80, it will be the second elif, and 100, it will be the third one. So all these if conditions are tested with the third option. Now let us see the D option also and decide which one will be the best option. So 74, 75, 76, 84. So this also will cover all these ones. So the logic coverage is there with C and D. But comparing to the options C and D, C is the better option. Why C is the better option is because with less number of values, you are able to do the logic cover. So the option is C. Thank you for watching.